Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley. I'm Pastor Gervais Charmley. This is another historic church in Leicestershire. This is the church of St Egelwin in the village of Scalford. Who was St Egelwin? I have no idea. I suspect he was a local saint, and such an Anglo-Saxon dedication, because Egelwin is an Anglo-Saxon name, suggests an Anglo-Saxon site, although the earliest parts of the church here are 13th century, and the earliest record of an incumbent here is in the late 12th century. The present building has some obvious 14th century elements, particularly the columns. These round columns are quite typical of the 13th century. They're not 14th century, they're not 15th century, they are 13th century. It's quite a lofty building as opposed to Goadby Marwood. This obviously was a bigger, richer parish in the 13th century. Its most notable incumbent probably is Henry Twells Waltham, who died, who was the rector here, or vicar here. I forget what the incumbent's called, I need to check that again, but he was the incumbent here 1891 to 1921. I don't know what his relationship was to the Reverend Henry Twells. He may very well have been a grandson or a nephew. But we'll have a look around here and see what we can see. It has been quite heavily Victorianised, but they've kept wall plaster on, because the medieval walls of buildings like this, they were not meant to be seen, and so the stonework's actually rather grotty on the inside, because it's just supposed to be, well, as long as it stays together, we slap a coat of plaster over it, paint it, and we're fine. And so a situation like this where you've got wall plaster is much more authentic, even though, of course, ironically, the removal of the wall plaster was based on ideas about authenticity, but there we go, that's being authentic for you, or not. So let's have a look around the inside then. As usual, then, we start at the west end. Most medieval churches are designed to be viewed from the west end looking east. You're supposed to start here and end up there. So that's what we'll do. The font here is Victorian. It is one of these sort of multicoloured marble jobs, but it has a terracotta panel on the front of the baptism of the Lord Jesus Christ. We also have at the back here, here's the loos, and here's the kitchen. They're modern additions, of course. This space here seems always to have been empty behind the font, and the font certainly has been here since it was installed. We have here a memorial to Joel Shuttlewood, gentleman and native of this parish, whose remains repose in this churchyard. This tablet is erected by his affectionate widow, Sarah Eleanor Shuttlewood. He was gathered to his fathers July the 17th, 1846, aged 81 years. And note the biblical gathered to his fathers. The organ is kept at the end of the north aisle. You can see its various pipes in there. There is a sort of ornamental organ front, but basically just a whole load of pipes at the end of the north aisle, and frankly, why not? There's here a very nice decorated, so 14th century era tomb recess. It's now got a whole stack of old Bibles and service books in it. Very nice. There's the bier. That's what they carried you off in if you died in the village. This is probably only about 1900 odd, or late Victorian, because you can see it's got springs and wheels. The older ones, if they had wheels, they probably didn't have springs, and most of them didn't have wheels either. Just need strong men to carry you. There is the pulpit, which is this big Victorian wooden thing with the emblems of the evangelists on it. And there you've got an eagle carrying the bookboard. A bit less in the light so you can see the eagle. As at Waltham on the Wolds, we have the commandment boards up there, along with the Lord's Prayer and the Creed. But in this case, they're painted on zinc panels, which was quite common in those days. The east window is patterned glass, but is not pictorial. Here we have the organ console. You see, it's very nice, entirely ornamental, and then we've got all those pipes doing whatever they need to be doing back there. It does have a name on it, which says Lloyd and Valentine of Birmingham. Good set of pipes in there. And yes, they are vicars. There's a list of vicars here. Over here we have In Memoriam Scalford Methodist Church. There's a banner that they had. The Methodist Church obviously is closed, and some stuff has been left behind, including the Roll of Honour and some of the memorials. There's the Mothers Union banner. The chancel has quite a nice acoustic, bit of an echo to it. And here we have the memorial to the Royal British Legion, the Veterans Organisation. The UK being the UK, the Veterans Organisation, Royal British Legion, much of its emphasis was on, and much of its strength rather, was Second World War veterans, and of course, as they have passed on, then the organisation has become less. Here we have a memorial to Basil F.W. Mogridge, 2nd Lieutenant, 4th Leicestershire Regiment, Scholar of St John's College, Cambridge, killed in action in France, October 13th, 1915, aged 19. He is, of course, the son of the Reverend Henry Twells Mogridge. Scholar St John's College, may have been preparing even for the ministry. Certainly he was a university student and he answered the call, and like so many, he was killed in the war. The old clock here, probably 17th century by the look of it. It would probably not have, no, it wouldn't have driven a clock face, but it would have instead simply chimed the bells as necessary on probably on the quarters, and then of course on the hour. And here lies Ellis Bards, the Filia Edmund Bardsey, SS the old docked, so he's Doctor of Sacred Scripture and Theology, and she then dies 1624, because of course Filia, daughter of, and here is the altarpiece. We have a reredos with the Good Shepherd in the middle, and that is that. Alpha and Omega, and there we have it looking west. Nice big chancel, long chancel, something of a sign, of course, of the 13th century, because the ceremonial becomes much more elaborate at that point. So there we have it. Now, this is interesting. This clearly is a portable font, and I wonder if the portable font comes from the Methodists and the lectern even, but I don't know at this point. Back past that lovely organ front with that lovely collection of pipes behind it, and we are looking west, so that is the inside. And so here we are outside now at Scalford, St Egelwin. It's the only church dedicated to St Egelwin in the entire country. The chancel, in fact, was rebuilt, although on the original foundations. There is a date on the east end, which we shall see as we go round. But so this is early 19th century rather, but it's on the original foundations. The building is, as you can see, it's ironstone with the usual dressings and the like. So let's have a look around the outside, shall we? As ever, we start looking, well, as usual, as is normal, we start looking at this one. You can see here this very nice 15th century, I suspect, porch with its now empty niches for statues. The tower is very typical of the area. It's iron stone, which of course, as we know, erodes quite a lot. And then we head for the east end, because that's where the this plaque, yes, 1840 something, I think, but don't quote me on that one. And round into the churchyard, and these lovely, lovely slate gravestones. And there we have the old vicarage at the end. North side, it's sort of in the middle of the village, this one, so the north side's relatively fancy. You can see some Budley has taken root up there. They do need to do something about it at some point. But money, of course, is always a big problem. Here we have, in loving memory of David Kilby, who departed this life June the 1st, 1893, aged 53 years, for 13 years clerk of this parish, gone but not forgotten. I heard the voice of Jesus say, "Come unto me and rest." And by the 1890s, the parish clerk had lost his old function of being the precentor, basically, but he still had a lot of responsibilities in terms of keeping records and the like. He was expected to be there, writing things down, making sure that the records were kept well. But here we have, you can see the clerestory up there. As you will notice inside, there's a bit of a lean to the building in places. This is perfectly normal because medieval buildings settled. You couldn't get geological reports before building something in the Middle Ages, which was just the way it was. And you can see that wonderful 15th century clerestory up there, and that lovely sort of gingerbread coloured stone, and then obviously we need this limestone for the dressings and for the corners and things. So, and obviously the old vicarage is now in private hands, so many of them are. So there's another church near here, Chadwell, but that's disused and basically is now in a derelict state, sadly. So that is around here. Just in fact, just a bit of breeze. I shall pause the camera and restart on the other side. And so here we have it on the south side. Now you can see up there these wonderful gargoyles, and there's that lovely porch in all its splendour. It's a very typical parish church shape. Of course, it's also one of these buildings that is it's variation on a theme. And you can see the niches. Obviously all of those niches would have had figures in originally, and there is the base of the churchyard cross. Announcement we made from it, preaching would have open air preaching, often by friars, would have been done from it, but primarily it's there as a memorial to the people buried here, because in the Middle Ages you didn't have gravestones unless you were very, very posh, and they were normally in the church. Beside it here we have the war memorial, and I think that so that's the war memorial, and doink, yeah, so we've got Mr. Mogridge commemorated there, 1914-19, of course, because that's when the treaty is signed, officially ending the war, and there's the cross again. And so there we have it, St Egelwin's, Scalford. So thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you until next time.